I'm very good, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. And first of all, congratulations on such a beautiful, beautiful film as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks a million.
So tell us a little bit about what it's meant for you to be able to come to Australia and present this film at the Sydney Film Festival.
Yeah, well, it's been extraordinary. I mean, this is my first time being in Australia actually. So it's a kind of remarkable thing when a film brings you to a new part of the world. And just to feel, we feel as filmmakers and as a film, it feels like the film has been very much embraced here, and that we've felt a lot of love, for the film. We've had just extraordinary screenings here in Sydney. Our first screening on Thursday, we had like a standing ovation from the audience, and myself and the producer Fiona, who's my wife, were on stage, and like we were like nearly in tears ourselves. So it's just remarkable for you when your film is embraced in that way outside of your home country.
Definitely. And Australia and Ireland has such a strong connection. I know even for my family, my grandfather is Irish, and on my wife's side, her dad is Irish. Do you think that helps Australian audiences get a better understanding of the film as well because of that close connection?
Yeah, I think there's a certain section of the audience obviously that will connect with aspects of it that perhaps other members of the audience may not. But I think to be honest, like the story itself is, even though it's an intensely Irish piece and there's a lot of kind of ancillary detail in it that speaks to the Irish sort of lived experience of the past, I do think there's a sort of a universality to the story and to what Claire Keegan created in her original work, that speaks to pretty much everyone.
Yep.
That's the thing we've noticed, like when we brought the film outside of Ireland, is the sort of uniformity of the response has been kind of remarkable, which is a testament, I think, to what Claire created.
Colm, how did you first become involved with the film, and what was your first thoughts when you read what Claire had written?
So yeah, like it was, as I said, like my wife is the producer, so we have our own production company. So I was actively looking for material to make an Irish language film, because a new scheme had been announced in Ireland to produce Irish language cinema. So we were looking for material, and I essentially just stumbled across Claire Keegan's book. I say book, but it's like a long short story. You buy it as a standalone publication, but it's you read it in like half an hour. It's very short, and I just fell in love with it, when I read it. I think I had a similar experience to what audiences are having with our film now, which is, it's just an intensely emotional experience, and I was in floods of tears reading the final pages of the book, and I just had this burning desire afterwards to adapt it to film.
From a screenwriting point of view, we've got a lot of screenwriters who listen to this show. What kind of pressure did that put on you then as a screenwriter to adapt Claire's, as you said, emotional and beautiful story? What kind of pressure did you feel as a screenwriter when you sat down to adapt it?
I guess in a strange way, I was never too worried about it. Like I always believed that you could craft something powerful from the material, but there was like one part of my kind of screenwriting brain that was very much aware of the fact that the story is essentially, like, the plot is like a secondary element of the story. It's not a plot driven story, and it wasn't going to be a plot driven film. I mean, you can summarize the plot as, like, girl gets sent away from home for the summer, stays with relatives, and comes home. So I knew going into the screenwriting process that the sort of narrative tension of the film would have to be based in something else. And the answer to that was really going all in on the fact that this was a first person narrative, and this was a film that belonged to this character, and that everything had to be sort of seen through the eyes of this character. And then, you know, I took comfort in the fact that, like, you look at the history of films that involve young protagonists, and they're oftentimes by design less focused on plot, and that it's more about atmosphere and character dynamics and everything else that filters through the question of point of view. So I kind of took comfort in knowing that. But yeah, so it was that then just informs everything that you write. You know, you're writing, and when I'm writing, because I know I'm directing as well, I've already started the sort of directing process as I'm writing. Like, the sort of mise en scène is sort of taking shape, you know, and so, like, for instance, like the sequences in the film where, you know, she's traveling from the home of her biological family to the Kinsela's home, and she's being brought by her father in the car. I'm writing that, and the way I'm writing it is already intimating that, like, the camera is never outside of that car, that it's firmly kind of rooted within this space. So, like, I'm describing, like, I'm never describing the camera, because, you know, you shouldn't do that in terms of screenwriting, but I'm describing just images that are suggestive of a particular point of view, like glanced, you know, things out the window, or like the back of the father's head, or whatever, you know. So it's giving you a very clear idea as a reader that this is a perspective that belongs to the young girl at all times.
So knowing that you're going to direct, does that mean that you almost storyboard it in your head when you're sitting down to write the screenplay?
To a degree, maybe storyboarding is too strong a word in a sense, but it's certainly, yeah, you do build up this sort of familiarity with a version of the scene as it exists in your head. But then obviously, you know, it's all, you know, as directors out there will know, it's entirely contingent on the locations that present themselves when you're actually making the film, and then having to sort of readapt to that, and sort of, you know, it's like, I heard an interview with Chloe Zhao recently talking about how when you're directing, you kind of need to be like water. You need to be able to sort of shift around and move and be fluid, and I think that's very true. I think if you're too kind of focused on a particular interpretation, that can actually be problematic, and in a strange way suffocate your film. So yeah, it's a question of remaining open to what presents itself.
Yeah. How did you also find capturing that time period? One of the things that a lot of the reviews that I had a look at online for the film have said that you captured that time period of Ireland so well, right down to game shows and things playing in the background. How difficult was that for you to capture that, and did you find that an enjoyable challenge?
I loved it. That was like, I'm very detail oriented anyway, so I love really immersing myself in the research of all of that, and you know, because the film is set in 1981, so I was born in 1981, so I don't quite remember precisely what was happening at that time. So it was a question of really having to go into the archives and just get a feel for everything, and then obviously, you know, you work with your art department and everything, and they bring a whole wealth of experience and present you with options and whatnot. But yeah, it was sort of a balancing act, though, of not wanting, you know, that you would have all of this detail there, and that it would all be very accurate, and you know, would I guess trigger certain memories for people who lived through it, but that the film shouldn't ever be too focused on that. You know, that it's not about that. That you're kind of treating the experience of the girl as a sort of a lived present, you know, yeah, rather than a very sort of rose tinted sort of look at our past.
The other thing that's amazing about this film is the casting. How did you go about casting the film, and how did you know that you had found the right young actress for the lead role as well?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first thing is that because this is an Irish language film, and I'm not sure if your listeners are aware, but like Irish is not a widely spoken language in Ireland, even though it's like the official language of the state. And you know, everyone learns Irish technically in school, like all through primary school and secondary school. But most people emerge from the education system and they don't really have a great grasp of the language. So, and it's only spoken as an everyday language in like certain pockets of the country, in these rural areas or in different parts of the country. So it's a real minority language. So then that translates to the world of, you know, of acting, and so you've a necessarily smaller talent pool to choose from. So it is a more difficult process. But I guess what was sort of liberating in a way was that we were dealing with a main character who was 9-10 years of age, so that we knew that was like an unknown, and we knew that there were quite a number of young people in Ireland who can speak Irish, because you have a whole network of Irish language schools throughout the country. So you kind of know that we were kind of confident that, okay, we'll definitely find someone within, like, there's thousands of these young people who have a grasp of the language. So that was just a question of putting in the time, and it took like 7 months for us to find Catherine. Starting off with physical auditions, open auditions, seeing hundreds of young people. Then COVID hit, so then we had to, like, you know, try to transfer everything over to like a virtual sort of thing where it was self-tapes coming in from all these young people from schools around the country, these Irish language schools. And then one day we just got a tape from Catherine Clinch, and it was extraordinary, you know. It was, as I say, this was about 7 months into the process, where we were kind of, you know, we had found some people that we thought, you know, had like some very strong qualities, but we were worried about, you know, well, would they be able to shoulder the responsibility of being like the main actor in a film, and all, you know, everything that comes with that. Whereas Catherine was the only person that we truly believed in on all fronts, and she just, from her very first tape, you could just see that she understood the character, and that she had this wonderful presence in front of the camera, and this wonderful ability to allow the camera to witness her inhabiting the character. So yeah, it was, you know, we keep saying it was sort of like it was sort of the miracle around which the film was built, like just finding Catherine.
Definitely. She's absolutely amazing. And Colm, we are almost out of time. So to wrap up, what would you like to say to people out there who are still yet to see the film and are about to watch it?
I guess I'd say, you know, it's if you're looking for something that's very kind of emotionally truthful, and I believe, you know, it is a very kind of compelling film, because it situates you in a very particular point of view at a very particular point in time, and it's a film about love, you know. It's a film about family and childhood and parenthood, but it's a film about love. It's a film about that thing we need in order to grow, and I think it's a film that will stay with you if you give it a chance.